And welcome. Welcome. Can you guys hear me? Yeah. Okay, awesome. Today is Tuesday, May 6th. Welcome to the Town of Highland Beach Town Commission meeting. It's now 1:30 and I'd like to call the meeting to order. If we could have the roll call, please.
Commissioner Chernofsky,
Here.
Commissioner Goldberg,
Here.
Commissioner Peters,
Present.
Vice Mayor Stern,
Present.
Mayor Moore,
Present.
Town Manager Labadie,
Present.
and Town Attorney Rubin.
Present.
We could all rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. No invocation today.
It's a big.
No invocation. I don't see yet. No, okay. Any changes to the agenda?
Yes,
No. Oh, there.
yes, there's one. We would like to add the National Safe Boating Week proclamation to the agenda as item 6I after the Memorial Day proclamation.
If we could have a motion amending the agenda?
I move to accept the agenda modification.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Moving on to presentations and proclamations. So I do not see our presenters yet, so I will.
Oh, they just
Here?
walked in.
Oh, they're walking in. Oh, welcome, Peggy and Lori. Perfect timing. Come on up to the podium. Please introduce yourselves. Welcome, Senator Lori Berman and State Representative Peggy Gossett-Seidman.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, we're a little late. We went to the back to the library. So yeah. So I'm Senator Lori Berman. I represent District 26, which includes Highland Beach. This is my colleague who you all know since she was on the city council here in Highland Beach, Peggy Gossett-Seidman. Are you ready for our legislative report?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. So we finished session, we were supposed to finish session, let's put it that way, this past Friday. We have 60 days of the legislative session and we have one constitutional duty, and that is to get a balanced budget. Unfortunately, we did not get a balanced budget, but we finished session, we did all of our legislative work, and we are going back, not all of it, but most of it. And we are going back sometime maybe next week. We haven't been given the official starting time. They extended session through, I believe, June 6th. Is that the, yes. So we have until June 6th according to that calendar, but technically the budget year for the Senate begins July 1. So by July 1, we should have a budget in place. As you know, Highland Beach has one appropriation in the budget. It's been funded halfway in the House for $250,000. It's the Marine Police project. Hopefully, when we go back, we will get it funded in both chambers, and we will move forward with that project. I'll give you a minute to introduce yourself, and then we can kind of tag team about what happened legislative wise.
Hi, everyone. Great to be back home. It's my 6th day home since January 24th. I forgot how hot it gets here. It's lovely. I'm Peggy Gossett-Seidman, your state rep. And regarding your appropriation, I nickname all my appropriations. I filed 45 this year, some for out of the district, but don't worry, you're still tops, you and Boca. But my nickname for that one is Docs for Cops. So we'll make sure we get that one done. But yes, Lori and I, the senator and I worked very closely as we could. And in our defense, we had a snowfall, an inauguration, and 2 special sessions. So please ignore certain headlines that say we couldn't get the job done in 60 days. We actually had like 51 days. And what's going on is we're just trying to get everything right at this time. And so I'll give the mic back to the senator, and we can answer any questions and move forward on our legislative process. And once again, it's great to be back home. Lori.
Thank you. So I want to just go over a couple bills that I got passed in the legislature, which I'm really excited about. I there were 1,900 bills filed and something like 250 bills that actually passed both chambers. I had 5 bills, 2 I do for the Florida Bar, one about trusts, one about Series LLC. I had a bill about breast cancer saying that employees of the state plan, if you need a subsequent test beyond a mammogram, such as an MRI or ultrasound, the state will pay for that. I had a bill recognizing Holocaust Remembrance Day, which is January 27th. So the state will now start recognizing that. And the bill that I think that will have the most lasting impact for all of Floridians is a bill to prepare a recycling plan. We have, as most of you know, recycling has not been very successful here in the state, and we keep having to add to our landfills. So this calls upon DEP to prepare a 3-year plan to figure out how we're going to do recycling on a going forward basis. You want to go over some of your bills?
Sure.
Yeah.
That'd be great. If I could add to the recycling, there is a false understanding out there that Palm Beach County does not recycle. We in fact absolutely do. When you put your plastics and your paper out in the collective bins, it absolutely goes to the right place. Like maybe other counties don't, but we do. And also anything such as batteries, paint, aerosols, please take up to Linton Boulevard. It's easy to make a run once a month and not blow up a garbage truck like we had here a couple years back. So my bills, I had a really couple of cool bills that came right out of this district. One was squatters. We have squatters throughout the state in commercial buildings. And that bill made it unlawful, matching the bill last year that we passed for residential. It went unlawful to break and enter and take possession of a building right on Federal Highway, which I won't name. This is ongoing. Group has held it for 4 years, and the owners whose parents were the previous owners, now deceased, can't get them out because we don't have a law on the books to remove squatters in a commercial building without due process of a court, which is both costly and timely, and therefore people don't just let the squatters take over eventually. So that is passed unanimously everywhere. Another one is very interesting, came to me from a guy right here in Boca. This is a debt collection. My new bill makes it unlawful to contact anyone for a debt collection between 9 p.m. and 8 a.m. except by email, which is non-invasive due to our 32-year-old statute. The calls were going out, calls, emails, push notifications, texts were going out every 5 minutes, day and night to some people, especially small businesses. So I give the self-storage and the many management companies and others now a vehicle to stop that practice, terrible practice. A big bill of mine was the parks bill I co-sponsored with John Snyder, protecting our parks from any development. John Snyder is the rep for Martin County South, Martin County, North Palm Beach County, and Gail Harrell really pushed that through. So those are my main bills. I co-sponsored a number of others, including the condo reform, the HOA reform, the boating safety, which will apply here, making it expanded penalties for BUI, which is boating under the influence. Sadly, this happens more than we know. And any BUI manslaughter is mandatory jail. Any could rise to the felony level. And I know we've encountered that here in our city too. Those are my favorite bills. And if for any more, I can give you my website link. Senator, tag team here.
Yeah, exactly. So I do want to tag team a little bit about the condo bill since it affects a lot of
Yes.
people. So as you know, after Surfside, we put in place pretty stringent requirements for inspections and reserves. And unfortunately, that combined with the increases in property insurance has been a very, very onerous burden on homeowners. So we are really trying to step it back. We are trying to make it we are trying to balance public safety against the need for these items and the costs that they will be. So one of the things that we did is if you have your milestone exemption, you will have an extra 2 years to fund your reserve to start until you have to start your reserves. And one of the things we did, which I thought was really great, you can use a line of credit to fund your reserves on a going forward basis. So that is going to be hopefully helpful to some of the condominiums that have really had the crushing burden here in the state. So we hope we'll see that. The other thing I like to talk about is preemption so that you know where you are limited. So the good news, the CRA bill appears to be dead. And the local tax, which what we were gonna, CRAs are agencies that help in blighted areas. And the bill basically did away with CRAs. For now, that bill is quiet. You never know what's gonna happen when we come back in a week or two, but it appears to be dead. And then there was a bill about how you could use the local tourist tax. That bill also appears to be done for this session.
Add on.
Yeah, I mean, it can always happen, right? Right.
If I can add on that both of those bills negatively impacted my district being Highland Beach, Boca Raton, and Southwest County, because we're all run well here. I will tell you, there are parts of the state who do not operate as efficiently and safely as Highland Beach, Boca Raton, and Palm Beach County. And therefore, when we're voting on something up there, it's often because we have some bad actors in other cities, which I will not name. But you can imagine when you hear about them, it's because the state has to rein in some of them. But for now, those are both in the garbage can. They could reemerge, bounce back. We don't know.
Right. And then the one bill that has passed that will affect you is Senate Bill 1080. It's about local government land regulations. And it has to do with when people are applying for development applications. And it does put in place some new guidelines, some in terms of how long you have to respond to an application. And there will be penalties if you don't respond in the time, including having to return money to the individual who has applied for the permits. So I'm sure the League of Cities, when all the dust settles on the session, the League of Cities and League of Counties will give you more information. But I just wanted to give you a heads up that that one is coming down the pike. And that's I have a handout if anybody wants to get it. Wait, my staff is here about some of the good bills. We actually had a very less divisive session than we have in past years. We really worked together in a partisan manner to do issues that were not the cultural war issues, which was great. It was a welcome change.
Fun.
Yeah, and I do want to, I always like to pick one bill that I think is the most fun bill. Unfortunately, it didn't pass, but we tried to change one of the state birds to the flamingo, but it didn't make it through.
Oh, wait.
Okay, go for it.
I have an update on that because I'm a co-sponsor. And also for the Indigenous Jay. We're bringing it back, and the rep, who is the representative for the Florida Keys, born and raised like 5 generations, Representative Mooney, it is coming back next year, and he has got acknowledgement that it will be passed. So we will have, yes, ma'am.
So the flamingo.
And if I could add a very important bill that I ran on behalf of our county clerk, Joe Abruzzo, I ran the Israeli bonds bill. The county has netted $83 million by purchasing Israeli bonds for about 8 years. The state has accrued 37 million. They are solid, a great investment, worldwide investment. And there were people throughout the country and perhaps the state who were trying to stop this based on a political issue, but my bill makes it unlawful to stop the purchase of Israeli bonds in the state of Florida. And again, Joe Abruzzo was very thankful. It was full support in the Senate and the House. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for your update, very thorough update. And we really appreciate all the work that you're doing, and especially the emphasis on our area here. And huge thank you for the support with the appropriations. That's fairly recent that we even got one in the first place. And so we really appreciate all your support. And I love the Docs for Cops. I hope the nickname works. And, obviously, how important it is and how important it is to the area. So we appreciate all your help with that. So
Yeah, sure.
Are there any questions?
are there
from
any
anyone at
questions
Commissioner
on the
Dion?
presentation?
I have a question, Vic.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for being here. I'm just curious, giving more time on the second reserve of the Sears, is that going to diminish the sense of urgency?
Yes, somewhat. It should somewhat. We're looking at, there's a little bit of leeway, and if you work with the state, you can work through us or through your management companies. There's an understanding that there was a rush. So you get back to me, I can give you some of the steps to it later if that's of any assistance.
Thank you.
And I will tell you, between Highland and Boca, we have 28,000 people along A1A and condos. That's a lot.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions about our 5 months of?
No, I would like to also voice my, and acknowledge the hard work that you're doing. We see it, we hear it, we're so very happy that you're vocal about it. And we read about wonderful things that are coming through your labor. So thank you very much.
Anybody else? Marshall?
Senator Berman, congratulations being appointed to the head of the Democratic Party, the Senate.
That was very cool. You can say what you are now.
Well deserved, and I'm glad it's from our district. So thank you.
Yes,
Peggy, thank you for all your assignments too on the committee work. So thank you.
of course. I will add my other favorite nickname for an appropriation. You know, we get the water here that comes from north. So if you have an inlet up by West Palm Beach, Boynton, it flows south. So for the 3 years, I've run an appropriation to clean up Lake Worth Lagoon, just south of Mar-a-Lago conveniently. And it runs southward and we obtain that water. So if it's dirty, we get dirty water in Lake Boca. But we have got an appropriation coming. It'll be 5 million to build islands and produce mangroves and seagrass. Already, every time I'm out on the boat, which is not much lately, we see dolphin and we see schools of fish. So, and in conjunction with that, because then I'm a kind of an environmental coastal diligent person as is the senator. My other favorite appropriation is Scoop the Zoo Goo. We're cleaning out the lake there that feeds into ultimately the waterway. It is full of like 8 feet of muck. So it's not a appropriation for here, but we love it. So thank you again.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
Wonderful.
very
Thank you.
much. Thank you.
And that's it. Okay.
Thank you.
You know where we are. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, moving on to, we have a series of proclamations. The first proclamation, it is a proclamation for Municipal Clerk Week. It's the 56th Annual Professional Municipal Clerk Week. Professional municipal clerks continue to strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the Office of Professional Municipal Clerks through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meetings of their state, provincial, county, and international professional organizations. And we want to extend our appreciation to our town clerk, Lynelda Gaskins, staff, and to all professional municipal clerks for the vital services they perform and their exemplary dedication to the communities they represent. So thank you very much, Lynelda. You really. And our deputy.
Great memories.
Yes, yes.
Should we all stand?
Yes, I think so, yes.
Thank you. Oh, one more. Thank you. There you go. Thank you very much.
The next item is Drinking Water Week proclamation. So obviously water is one of our most natural resources, and we're just here to recognize the importance of drinking water and to protect our water sources from pollution. So is there someone here? Yeah. Okay, water guys.
Water guy.
Come on up.
We have a water guy.
Thank you for all your work for keeping our drinking water in pristine condition.
Will.
Yeah, we're gonna. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for the work. That's pretty good. Thank you.
I'll be in the front page for my unity.
Next item, very important for National Police Week proclamation. Honoring law enforcement officers and commemorating National Police Week for 2025. So whereas the Congress and President of the United States have designated the week of May 11th through the 17th, 2025 as National Police Week in recognition of the service and sacrifice of law enforcement officers throughout the nation. Whereas law enforcement officers risk their lives each day to safeguard the rights and freedoms of the public, enforcing our laws, maintaining peace and order, and providing critical protection for our communities. And whereas it is fitting and proper to honor the valiant men and women, past and present, who have answered the call to serve and protect, and who demonstrate courage, commitment, and professionalism in the line of duty. And whereas the town of Highland Beach is proud to recognize and commend the dedicated members of the Highland Beach law enforcement community for their exceptional service, integrity, and unwavering dedication to ensuring the safety and security of all residents and visitors. Whereas we especially pay tribute to those who have made the ultimate sacrifice in the performance of their duty, and we honor their memory with deep gratitude. Now, I therefore, Natasha Moore, Mayor of the Highland Beach, Florida, on behalf of the Town Commission, do hereby proclaim May 11th through the 17th of 2025 National Police Week. In recognition of the work of all law enforcement officers with special appreciation for our Highland Beach Police Department, we urge all residents to join in honoring those who serve and protect our community with valor and commitment. And so we really appreciate our police officers, and we're really grateful for everything that you do.
Very good. Yeah. Thank you.
Proclamation, Emergency Medical Services Week. We're declaring the week of May 18th through the 24th as Emergency Medical Services Week. Whereas the providers of emergency medical services devote their lives to saving others, and whereas the providers of emergency medical services include medical directors, physicians, nurses, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, educators, and administrators. And whereas the citizens and visitors of Highland Beach rely on the knowledge, skill, and dedication of these professionals in times of emergency. And whereas education, prevention, and advances in emergency medical care increase the number of lives saved each year. And whereas residents value and support the establishment of exemplary emergency medical services in Highland Beach. Whereas the members of emergency medical service teams, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Town Commissioners of the Highland Beach, Florida, do I hereby recognize the week May 18th through 24th, Emergency Medical Services Week. So thank you very much for our emergency medical services professionals. We appreciate all that you do.
Congratulations.
Mindful.
Thank you, guys. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for coming in. Nice to see you. Thank you. Next item, National Public Works Week proclamation. May 18th through the 24th is the National Public Works Week, named People, Purpose, Presence. Public Works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, emergency management, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities, to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the citizens in the town of Highland Beach. Whereas in the year 2025 marks the 65th annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association, Canadian Public Works Association, be it now. Now, therefore, I, Natasha Moore of the town of Highland Beach, Florida, on behalf of the Town Commission, do hereby designate the week of May 18th through 24th, the National Public Works Week. And please join us with the representatives of the American Public Works Association to pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize your significant contributions that you make to protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life. So thank you very much. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. And here's a folder.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Very much. Next item, Building Safety Month proclamation. Building Safety Month is May 2025. Whereas the town of Highland Beach is committed to recognizing that our growth and strength depends on the safety and essential role of our homes, buildings, and infrastructure, both how they play in both the everyday life and when disasters strike. Whereas our confidence in the resilience of our buildings that make up our community is achieved through the devotion of vigilant guardians, building safety and fire prevention officials, architects, engineers, builders, tradespeople, design professionals who work year-round to ensure the safe construction of buildings. And these guardians are dedicated members of the International Code Council, a nonprofit that brings together local, state, territorial, and federal officials who are experts in the built environment to create and implement the highest quality codes to protect us in the buildings where we live. Whereas Game On, the theme for Building Safety Month 2025, encourages us all to get involved and raise awareness about building safety on a personal, local, and global scale. And whereas each year in observation of Building Safety Month, people all over the world are asked to consider the commitment to improve building safety, resilience, and economic investment at home and in the community. Now, therefore, I, Natasha Moore of the town of Highland Beach, on behalf of the Town Commission, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2025 as Building Safety Month. So thank you, Building Department, for all that you do to keep us safe. And yeah. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
And here's the folder. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is the Memorial Day proclamation. It's the 157th anniversary of Memorial Day.
Whereas the last Monday in May is set aside each year to honor our servicemen and women who answered the call of duty and made the ultimate sacrifice in defense of our great nation. And whereas in May 1868, Major General John A. Logan called for a nationwide day of remembrance to pay tribute to those who gave their lives serving our country, which would officially be designated Memorial Day by Congress. And whereas Monday, May 26, 2025 will mark the 157th anniversary of Memorial Day. And whereas our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Coast Guardsmen, and merchant mariners, many of whom paid the ultimate sacrifice to ensure our country remains the land of the free, have made our state and nation immensely proud. And whereas the state of Florida is recognized as one of the most military and veteran-friendly states, with more than 1.4 million veterans living in Florida, making it the third largest in the nation. And whereas Memorial Day is an opportunity to honor and remember the men and women of the armed forces who gave the ultimate sacrifice in defending our freedom, we also should express our gratitude and sympathy to our Gold Star families. We must remember all those who have died for our great nation and honor those who continue to serve our nation every day. And whereas we recognize and honor all those with the phrase, all gave some gave all. Whereas the National Monument of Remembrance Act, passed in 2000, requires all Americans to stop what they're doing at 3 p.m. on Memorial Day for a minute of silence to remember and honor those who died while in service. Now, therefore, I, Natasha Moore, Mayor of the Town of Highland Beach, Florida, on behalf of the Town Commission, do hereby proclaim May 26, 2025 as Memorial Day in the Town of Highland Beach in recognition of all those who have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to our nation. So we really appreciate and honor all our veterans. Is there anyone here to accept? No? Okay. Okay. Oh, would you like to accept the proclamation for Memorial Day? Please do. We thank all the veterans for their service. Have pictures?
Yeah, thank you. Picture, my picture. No picture?
He doesn't want a picture. He doesn't want a picture.
Really?
And we have item 6I, National Safe Boating Week. For over 100 million Americans, boating continues to be a popular recreational activity. Safe boating begins with preparation, and the Coast Guard estimates that human error accounts for most of the boating accidents, and that life jackets could prevent nearly 75% of the boating fatalities. Through basic boating safety procedures, carrying life-saving emergency distress and communications equipment, wearing life jackets, attending safe boating courses, participating in free boat safety checks, and staying sober when navigating, we can help ensure boaters on America's coastal, inland, and offshore waters stay safe through the season. Therefore, I, Natasha Moore of the Town of Highland Beach, Florida, on behalf of the Town Commission, do hereby support the goals of the Safe Boating Campaign and proclaim May 17th through the 23rd, 2025 as National Safe Boating Week. So is anyone here to? I'm a boater. It is so important. We're always looking for the latest gadget to help keep us more safe. It's just so important. So I hope everyone remembers to stay safe out on the waterways. So, okay. Are there any public comments? No, seeing no public comments. There are no ordinances today. There are 2 items on the consent agenda. Any changes to the consent agenda or any discussion? If no, if we can have a motion.
Yes, right. Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second that?
All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries. Move. Moving on to unfinished business, the building department recertification program update.
Good afternoon, Commission. So since the last recertification update, we have recertified the second 45 Ocean Building, 4511 South Ocean Boulevard. So that brings our number to 20 buildings. We have one building still under permit for electrical work. One building is still overdue on the electrical application. That is Regency Highland. They do have an active code case, but they are under extension with a compliance deadline of May 12th. No application has been applied for as of yet. Townhouses of Highland Beach, both buildings 2565 and 2575 now have concrete restoration permit applications in progress. The application was submitted on April 22nd. Comments from our structural engineer was sent on May 1st. We are awaiting to hear back from them, addressing those comments to continue the review process. Highland Beach Club is under a granted extension to secure a concrete restoration permit. Their deadline is May 31st. And we have 23 buildings currently under permit for concrete restoration. Still, one building is still within the due dates to submit their phase 1 reports. And 3 buildings still with the no status mentioned. Their due date is too far to be notified.
Great.
Thank you.
Sounds like we're in good shape, making a lot of progress. 20 buildings that are
Yes.
completed. That's great.
It's
That's
great.
great news.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or anything? No. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Florida Department of Transportation, Triple R project update.
All right, Pat, bring us up to speed.
I'm here for any questions. I don't know about up to speed. It is what it is. They're going to have to go redesign a bunch of stuff. We had FDOT come out and look at some of these transitions that there was a surprise to them that, so now they're going to have to redesign some of the sidewalk area, some of the transition, bring some fill in. So they have a little bit of work ahead of them now.
So between the, on the west side, between the road and.
And the sidewalks, some
sidewalk.
of it's so much lower and the driveways.
Mhm.
So they actually 2 weeks ago, the designer from FDOT finally came out
Oh, good.
and he looked at it. Now they got to go back and reassess.
Okay.
So we're waiting for that.
Okay. So it's more about, that grading.
It's that transition. That's the big part that.
So nothing,
Seen.
nothing new about the drainage or anything like that.
They still have some drainage to do at the north end of town. I mean, the south end of town that they haven't gotten to yet.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
other than that, any other questions, I can answer the best that I can.
Does this extend the schedule beyond August?
They haven't came up with that yet, but I would imagine, there's going to be more work involved.
Mhm.
But at least that would be specific areas,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
I think the main paving will be done by August, but there's going to, like I said, there's going to be the punch list and the little
Right.
things that are going to drag on a
Right.
little bit.
Right.
Correct.
Well, we're almost there.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
getting, it's
yeah.
getting, and trust me, at the end, it'll be worth it.
And the
Yeah.
bulk of the
It'll-
cars have left.
Yeah, that's right. We've got less congestion.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
Although I must say, yesterday, going out.
Yeah,
when
when they do the intersection, oh, yeah.
Was terrible.
When they do the intersection, it gets really,
Yeah.
really bizarre.
But it is appreciated that emails go out daily,
Yes.
giving us an idea of what's going to happen
About- Yeah,
and what
when
to
they're going to have
avoid.
one lane closures. and-
Unfortunately, I didn't follow that
Yeah.
yesterday to my detriment. Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes you got to go out
Yeah.
the south end, sometimes you got to go out
Yeah.
the north end. It
Right.
all depending on where they're at.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I would just add to that, as we proceed, Pat and I are keeping a very close eye on, if we need to, we will go see the FDOT secretary for our District 4 to make sure it is done properly and not just skimmed over and patchwork of repairs, especially as it relates to our bike path, which will be significantly lower than the road in some locations. So
And that's what I'm afraid of, that it's going to run all the water onto the bike path. And then now the bike path is going to be flooded where people can't walk through it. So that's my concern. So we're going to try to get it raised. So it's at least level to A1A. Oh.
but the driveway work for some of the private residents, we are, I don't know if every private resident is watching, but this is a FDOT project. We didn't do this
Right.
to you, but we'll help you get in contact. We've had some people bottoming out their
Right.
cars on those transitions. create causing damage. And I said, well, there is a claims process by which one would work with the contractor and the FDOT inspector to get that remedy. The town doesn't take care of your car, your tires, things of that nature. But again, as Pat and I have said, we will be watching the project as it unfolds over here over the next few weeks when they have to start delivering change orders for design and what those changes will look like and putting those onto paper.
I
So
don't know if you've seen what they have to do in front of the fire department. They got to take out a majority of the apron and redo it.
and the funny thing is we put that apron at the grades. They
Yes.
told us to put it at.
Yeah,
So
we-
this, there, Pat and I have some concerns. He's very calm for odd reason. Usually I want him to come and blow up today, just so you can see how upset he is, but obviously he's keeping it cool. That's some of our concern is we're doing things to the plans and then they're coming and find out that the plans aren't going to work and they change the road grade on the fly. So they're chasing some problems. We're going to hold their feet to the fire to make those correct.
And Pat, you said there's 2 more layers, right? A macadam
Two more
coming on the
lifts.
crown.
Yeah, 2 more lifts to make the crown,
Right.
which is probably about another 1.75 inches. Going to be that much higher. And then the water should run off both sides of the road.
Good, good.
And again, like I say, they got to take another foot off the east side yet.
Yeah,
So that whole foot has to come off of that side as well.
That'll help.
Mhm.
That'll be a big benefit. Okay.
Mhm.
Well, thanks.
thank you, Pat.
you.
Thank you.
Next item, sanitary sewer lining rehabilitation project update.
Yeah, and I'm excited to make the proclamation during this Public Works Week coming up that Pat and Sergio did a really good job of bringing this project to a resolution. I know it's been a long time coming, failed bid attempts, no bidders. We started to talk about the SRF and the engineers' estimates were starting to initially hit us at 6.5 million. We said, that's crazy when you told us it was 2 not too long ago. Nonetheless, your Public Works leadership team was able to deliver something off the Omnia contract with a company that we had done some work with in the past. So we were able to get the project now. We asked for 3.5 million. It's 1.3 with the contingency. So we saved a ton of money below that. We'll get an engineer on staff to observe the project, like a construction inspector, help us do pay apps and the like. So that's really going to work out. Len's got to do some tricky contract work because it's out of Illinois, but this really works in our best interest to complete this project. I'm really excited that we're going to be under $2 million, and
That's great news. Wow.
Yeah.
That
so
is
it's gonna be
really
great. So
news.
they said it's a 40-day project, folks, which is we'll put FDOT to shame, but
The lightning speed.
40 days to get this work done, maybe a little bit longer. I think that might be a bit aggressive, but they said they can do it in 40. This also, from the original, does include all of our side streets. So we're going to go into Bellito, Russell, Highland Beach Drive. So we're going to go down into all the side streets as well. We're going to line the whole system for that price and get that done with as our commitments have been. And we know some of the issues and problems. So we're excited. We have a solution in hand. And I would think maybe even as early as the June 17th meeting, we could have a draft contract potentially, and work it out. The contractor seems very agreeable to terms and work through it. I compared it to the bid specs that define the engineering concepts or procedures and methods for cure in place pipelining. It seems to match a lot of what was in the Illinois because most engineering standards are pretty universal in this country. So I think we're in good shape. So contract work, we got to figure that out. We're meeting with one of our engineers when Pat gets done fishing, and then we will, I got to put it in there. So we'll get that all hopefully, by the mid-June, have them in contract. But now the trick will be, once we sign that contract, they're ready to go. So we're gonna have to wrestle around with FDOT a bit and see when, we can get it started. But again, through the process, you sign the contracts, get everything in place, they mobilize, buy their materials. So hopefully we'll meet that timing so we can hit the side streets and then move our way into A1A and be done. So,
Wow. So it could be done by like end of September, by end
Oh,
of
yeah.
fiscal year.
I mean,
Wow.
if FDOT wasn't here, it'd be done even sooner.
Oh, wow.
But I think we're going to have to
That's
time that a
great.
little bit.
Wow.
FDOT's permitting.
Wow.
It'll depend on when FDOT will issue us a permit after this is done. So there could be a little couple month window there, but I think by 26, we should definitely be done.
We could probably even work within their MOT. We just might have to squeeze some arms a little
It
bit.
is because a lot of it's
We're
not
just
going to need
stationing up
MOT.
structure to structure. So we're
Right.
not
Right.
occupying lane travel. We're just in the right of way. So we'll see how that works out.
Wow. That's really great.
Yeah. And that'll be good
Thank
for everybody.
you.
We'll get everything
Yes.
lined. It'll be good for the next 50 years without any concern. So, and then again, as before David gets into his 5-year forecast, the sewer fund has a majority of the cash to handle it and meeting our target for cash on hand for operations. So there may be a little interfund piece to this where the general fund may lend the sewer fund money, or the commission may choose just to fund the engineering out of our budget. We'll have that discussion because it's a small amount. I was thinking the interfund loan is when we had to borrow, say, $1 million, $1.5 million. Now it's a couple $100,000. So we might be able to carry it without going through a series of resolutions that Len would have to map out for that interfund borrowing. So we'll see as the project unravels. We get it from Hazen and Sawyer, get their estimate. That's our engineering firm, and we'll go from there. So the projects
Great.
see, Dr. Greenwald's been talking to me about this for a long time. So we're getting it there. We're getting it to the finish line. So we're almost there.
Excellent. Great
That's
news.
terrific. Monica.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great news.
So that this will not, what will it actually look like when when they're putting it together with respect to what FDOT is doing?
Well, it's
How
all
will
going to
that work?
depend, timing and sequencing. So basically the concept though is you go from a manhole structure, like those sewer grates you see on the west side, we go between the two, they station on both ends, we bypass pump the sewer, they clean and jet it out, and then they have this machine that blows this plastic resin and then it hardens. And it is just like a brand new PVC, HPVC kind of whatever pipe, and it lasts 50 years plus. So we're in good shape.
Good, thank you.
That's great news. Moving on to new business. Discussion of the updated 5-year financial forecast. Thank you.
Thank you. What did I just do here?
And back with all the
Yes,
fanfare.
hello,
is
thank
one
you.
David Delina.
My favorite town of all, without a doubt. And, and here, just an overview, here's why we do this. And here's why, the Highland Beach is, in my opinion, the talk of the rest of the towns. We look at a 5-year forecast, right? We're trying to forecast expected revenues and expenditures and fund balance and cash for all of these major funds. What this does, obviously, it provides a roadmap for retaining and maintaining financial stability, not just, and this is what I keep telling other clients is that what Highland Beach looks forward. You look ahead. You're not just focused on 1 year and kicking cans down the road. And so this is just a part of your success. And so this analysis really continues our tradition of reviewing. Now, what do? We review 3 years of historical data, right? And we review last year's budget, this year's budget. We even take where we're at 6 months from now, right? Mid-year, we're already through the mid-year point of FY25, and we anticipate going forward what the end of the year is going to look like. And then what we do is we figure out, if any, is any money going to drop to the bottom line to replenish reserves, right? Or are we going to have to pull from reserves to balance that budget? A lot of what the state of Florida is trying to do, right? And that's the goal. So this right here, here's what you're looking at. Here are just some general assumptions. All right. So you'll see these general assumptions throughout. Do you remember the good old days when we started here, right? You remember when we were fighting inflation? inflation was over 10%, and we were really fighting that. It was really a concern. Well, thankfully, the yellow line here has come down. Here are some of our general assumptions that we use across general inflation, utility, energy, healthcare costs, things like that. Property insurance, that was kind of a big one, right? We kind of look at where it's been. What do we think? Do we think it's going to slow down a little bit? R&R, which is on the bottom, which is more for our water and sewer funds, and that is renewal and replacement, right? We may not need to throw away the pumps, but we may need to invest a little bit of money to keep those pumps up and running to exceed a little bit of their useful life. So typically we put in 5% what we call of R&R. And so these right here are the general assumptions. When you're going out 5 years, you have to make some general assumptions. Okay. Let me, I don't know if you're all aware, this is an opportunity, and stop me at any time if you have any questions.
I have one question.
Go ahead.
Dave, I'm curious, something I ask in corporate. If we look back in 3 years, but we never see a program where we look forward 3 years, we always say we look forward 5 years.
Yeah.
Why don't we look forward 3 years instead of 5? I'm just curious to clarify that.
Well, I would agree. I would agree with you. I don't think there is any rhyme or reason. I think your recipe for success here is we just kind of did the 5 year.
Okay.
Here's why another reason too. Water rates. Typically, organizations do water rate studies over 5 years. We look at water consumption, sewer usage, and they always typically look at it for 5 years. And so I think that how this first began was a takeoff of that. It was almost looking at, well, Raftellus did a 5 year. Why don't we do a 5 year? So that was definitely the idea.
Thank you.
But let me give you a little bit of how governments, what we do with cash, right? This is kind of interesting to me anyway. It puts my kids to sleep at night. But anyway, so you can see here at the top, these are all of our cash balances. Okay. And you can see here on the far right-hand side, this is the rates of interest that we earn in those cash balances, right? And now, like a lot of organizations, we have others that are part of the town of Highland Beach. We have a water fund, we have a sewer fund, we have a library system, we have the building department, right? So at the end of the day, of the $18 million there, it has to be divvied up somehow. Well, the way we do it is realistically, we're not estimating anything. If the building department bills out something and brings in the revenue, it goes into a bank account up here, right? And we know through our computer systems that, oh, that's the building department. So their equity, that's what this is on the bottom. This is their equitable share, right? If we, like a partnership, right? Like if you were a lawyer, I would assume that they do something similar to they say, well, if we were to close business, here's what we would cut you a check for each of those people. So this is what we call pooled cash. Okay. And so it's the best way really to run it because we pile, instead of having every one of these systems has their own banking account, reconciling all these different system bank account. Governments in the normal course of business do a system that's called pooled cash. So all the cash from all of these funds are in these accounts. Now, why do we have different accounts? Well, we have different accounts for investment opportunities, right? We keep some liquid, right? For our everyday what we think we're going to spend in the next 6 months or a year, right? And so other items we invest for long term, and we are restricted on our investments. Unfortunately, you can't invest in Bitcoin, but maybe that'll change. But no, I mean, the state of Florida says what you can and can't invest in. Right. And so we obviously have to adhere to those laws. And so what we looked at here is, you'll see, like, for example, the general fund, right? Over the CARG is the compounded annual growth. Okay. And what you'll see over there, you see that the general fund went down a little bit. Well, we built a fire station, and we used cash, right, to do that. Wow. What was the big one that really came in there was probably the building department. The building department went up 20-something% there, right? Well, if you recall, another wise decision that the board made many years ago is to take on the Gulfstream. And obviously that's built up the cash in that position. Yes.
Curious about one number.
Yes.
On the top, the 5.361 million.
Yeah.
At the 2.8%.
Yep.
Which is our biggest number and
Yep.
the lowest rate.
Yep.
Are we also within that fund doing 3, 6, 9-month CDs?
Yes.
In order to get that interest rate up on a regular basis?
Yes. Staff at the manager's prodding, we do want to push it into Florida Prime. We do eventually want to move things into Florida Prime. Florida Prime, you can see there, we're getting 4.9% interest sometimes, but see, our regular checking account, right, is with Pinnacle, right? And so, or I'm sorry, PNC. PNC, right? And so to move funds from our operating, from our savings to our operating, it's a lot easier when you do it bank to bank as opposed to contacting Florida Prime. And it takes them about 24 to 48 hours to shoot the money over to you. So this right here was more of a timing issue at 9:30. We usually do like to tend to keep a lot more money in Florida Prime. Yep.
So that account, Vice Mayor, that you're talking about, that's basically like our checking account. The other PNC custodial account has the laddering of products to get a better drive on interest. But we are finding Florida, right, Susie? Florida Prime seems to be our regular success story of it's easy to use and it's generating more interest. So we're recalculating to some extent, but remember, we have an investment policy too that has a third-party custodial agreement, and that burns out our rates of interest because we got to pay to do that because it's in our policy. We will be revisiting that, I promise you, because we kind of lose a lot of money on that. We don't have enough to really be in danger when we have all of the other dual authentication requirements and we can't lose that, but it's just somebody else has to say, okay, we're going to move the money. Well,
I understand that. But what I was looking at is the size in each of the accounts. And that by far has the largest amount with the lowest interest rate.
that was about 2 weeks ago that he got the number. Susie and I just burned through payroll and some payments that we had and probably took that down about 2 million. So that's kind of like our cash on hand to cover. Susie, what are we, about $1.5 million is our burn rate? 1.7 million a month to keep the doors open. So
That's the money market you're talking about.
yeah, that's why it kind of, and that's where our tax money comes in, and then we'll shuffle some down into Florida Prime, but then we keep some because we have some big expenses that have to time for some loan payments and things.
Right. Yeah. But we'll keep, but I did want to share it with you. Obviously that, that number one, it's a pooled cash. We divide it up into long-term savings, midterm savings, and cash we need, in the immediate future. And then which funds have access to that cash if we were to call it a day. Now keep in mind, this is cash, right? This is not fund balance, right? So this is the difference between, what I have in my bank account versus what my net worth is, right? Because fund balance says, you might have a lot of assets, cash, receivables, right? You might have a lot of that, but you also have liabilities. You also have things that haven't been paid yet, but it is a snapshot in time. Okay. And so it is good for predicting that in the future. All right. So man, where have we come from? Look at this. We used to be in the days up here, right? When property values were at the double digits, 13.7%, right? Property values in this area were very, very high. in 2025, right, it went down here to, looks like about 8.8 right here. Okay, that's where we're at right now. Okay, the bars represent our estimated changes in property values, right? So our assumption assumes this, because 75% right here of your revenue is from ad valorem dollars, 75% of it, right? And so we won't get that number until I think June 6th or something like that. So how it works is the property appraiser, right, waits until June, the first part of June, and says, by the way, now we're releasing all the data that we have to you to give you your estimated property values, right? So every year at this time, we wait for that. In the past, it's been, oh, your property values have increased by 13%, or your property values have increased by 8%. They look at that data by the accumulation of how properties changed hands over time and what the selling price is and so on and so forth. Well, what we did, again, we said, you know what? We think that it's going to go to 5% for the next 2 years, and then it may drop down to, I think we did 4% in the ensuing over the next 4 years. Now, if it's higher than that, that's good, right? Because, right, we can put more away, and we'll get into what the next projects are. We can put more away, maintaining our millage, right? Maintaining our millage, but we get a little bit more. So what that does is that helps us replenish our reserves for what we had pulled out for the fire station. We've got a boat dock, that's 1.2 million. We still got to do this old fire station here for $1 million. We got the police, and so we'll go through all those. But what we're able to do is we're able to earn interest on our money, and our future 5 years anticipates not taking out any more debt. And then we'll see also in the water fund how we continue to pay down debt. So
On what basis did you make the assumption of 4% growth commencing, what was this, 2028?
right. I couldn't predict, there would be no way I would be able to predict a 13% up here or an 8%. It is an underlying assumption. It was a conservative assumption. And I'd rather be conservative, and we'll show you, since this is, I want you to think this is 80% or 75% of your income. You're trying to think to yourself, how much of a raise am I going to get? Right? And so that's really how it looks at, we have other revenue, which comes from the state of Florida, right? We have 5% of what comes into the general fund. That's from our other funds that have to pay their administrative fees, right? They've got to pay for our time, for everything that goes in for legal costs and things like that. And so you can see everything that goes into the general fund kitty, 75% of that is ad valorem dollars. So that's why it's very predicated on what our assumptions. Now, historically, we've always been very conservative. We've pre-built our budgets to be conservative, but we're gnawing at our nails, waiting till June 6th. The town manager at the convention, when they release that, he shoots that out, and then we plug that in, and we're all right. Now we know where we're going to land at. So it's a very important number, but to answer your question directly, it was an educated, conservative, estimated number.
Which I think we're all in support of.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I definitely like the conservative assumptions.
Yeah.
And then I just another point of clarification, this
Yes.
chart that has the percentage changes and all that.
Yep.
That only is for the 75% of the revenue. You don't have any estimate of projections for the other revenues. You're-
Yeah. So what we did, this right here was the lion's share.
Right.
Yeah.
This
Yeah,
is
yeah,
this chart represents the 75%.
Right. This chart here was to show you, in my opinion, how important the ad valorem dollars are. Not that you didn't already know that, but to let you know that, hey, it's 75% of our budget. And by the way, in the future, this is what we think it's going to grow at. But let's look at what that number does. Okay. So when you go to the next page, based on that information, right? Based on some conservative estimated values, based on that 75% of our revenue dollars that come in, right, are going to potentially increase by 5% for the next 2 years and then down 4% in the latter years. Based on other operating revenue, you remember that other operating revenue, that only represents 20% of our income. It is important, right? Take in mind that discretionary sales tax dollars end December 25th, right? So we excluded that from this calculation. So what we did is we kind of looked at, hey, all right, top line revenue, big picture, it's going to grow at about 4.2%. Other revenues will grow at about 3.7%. Other revenues are that stuff that we get from the state of Florida, sales tax. We don't have a lot of gasoline tax, obviously, in this town, and we don't have a lot of sales tax either, but other revenue sharing that the state of Florida gives us, okay? And so we kept, look at the next line, transfers in from our other departments. We kept that flat, right? Because we didn't want to muddy up the water. You know, let's not have too many moving parts here. Let's just see where things kind of level out, right? Look at here, though, we don't have any appropriations anticipated from reserves, right? Matter of fact, if you look at the blue line, appropriation to reserves, right? So we can see there that that's going where that's going.
And as we move through this, we're still working out the fine details on capital. But if you look at that blue line, it pretty much aligns up with the authorizations provided by the residents to undertake those major capital projects: sanitary sewer, old fire station, marine docking facility, the old fire station. That covers it over the same general period. And we do it without a structural deficit, which is always my biggest concern, is we do not want to start aggressively getting into reserves. But if we had to in the short, because of some hiccup, we have that also the ability to cover that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, our financial health is strong, but again, it's still applied on the basis of the revenues and our conservative estimates at 4% kind of moving
David.
out over the years, which is a safe number.
Yeah.
But historically, if we were to go back over 30 years, if I recall that 30-year chart we have, it's generally around there, 3 to 6% is always kind of our running average through the years and through a couple of cycles over the last 30 years. So it's a pretty safe, conservative number.
Yes, sir.
Even though it might be an estimate, can I feel more assured that the next 3 years we're closer on our guesstimates than the fourth and fifth year?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Of course.
I just
right,
want to,
right.
for my own clarity.
Yeah. The farther this goes out,
Right.
the less, but you have to build it with assumptions.
Correct.
If you recall, I think we started this in 2022. Okay. But we really couldn't do much in 2023 and 2024. Here's why. We had such a disruption to the normal course of business in building a fire station. We had such a disruption in not only maintaining our own fire department, but also having another, still paying Delray Beach, right? We were building a new fire station and paying for 2 fire departments, right? And so there was so much variability in the numbers that it was hard to look at what is normal stability, what is normalcy here because of that. But we came back through, right? We're already 6 months through or more, 6 months through our current FY 2025, right? Our first full year of having our own fire department, right? And so we can look at and we can see what's normalcy now. What does normalcy look like? And that's what this does, okay? So the things to keep in mind is I don't know what color that is. I guess that's a red, or I don't know what you would call it.
Orange.
Orange. Okay, thank you. So that's appropriation from reserve. So what does that mean? That means that you have a separate bank account, that's your savings account, that in order to make your monthly bills or your annual bills, you'd have to pull money from that. We're not having to do that in the foreseeable future, right? The blue line is us taking money and saying, hey, we can squirrel this away. We can squirrel this away in a little bit leaner times. Maybe year 2, maybe the property appraiser doesn't come back at 5%. Maybe it comes back at 4% or 3%. That's all right. You know, we can handle that headwind. And the green lines, you'll notice match, right? So we're matching up our revenues up here with our expenditures down here. And you'll also notice these right here are all your departments, right? And you'll also notice that typically police and fire, it costs more to operate that, right? So that's why on average, their average annual compounded growth rate is higher than most other departments.
And it always costs more year over year.
Yes.
Always costs more year over year. We love them, but it costs more year over year. So we have to really be conscious of the growth of those costs and expenses.
Right. And so what are we going to do? Why do we need this blue line here? Let's go to the next slide. Well, because the general fund has some major projects, right? That it could be accomplished with not taking out debt, right? Not taking out debt, but utilizing the future appropriation to reserves, as well as utilizing our cash. And so here's what we did. We identified priority projects. You'll notice that the sanitary sewer project is not included in here. The reason why is because that's in the sewer fund, and we'll get to that. But the general fund has these 3 projects. You'll also see that I did an estimated cost today, right? But by the time we get to the projects, I've assumed an annual rate of inflation at 3.5%. So even though today this building, police phase out building might cost us $1 million, by the time we get to it, it's going to be probably almost $1.1 million, you know, and so that's what we wanted to take into consideration.
Those dates or years on the project, are they in line with the strategic plan?
No, but David did his best. So we'll tweak this. This is our first go around, but we could, based on the projections that David had on the 5-year forecast, we could move projects forward. Those latter year projects could move forward. But originally we didn't know how it was all going to shake out. So we kind of picked some placeholders and say, do it over 3 consecutive years, space it out. But once you see this, and then you go to the fund balance with the unassigned balance, we could probably move those projects
Yeah,
up. We can.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't seen the
And then
unassigned balance
again,
yet.
when Susie delivers the audit report and gives you that report, we did well that last fiscal year, put more dollars into the kitty too. So we're in a really healthy condition to address those capital projects, which we've been authorized to move forward with and have to complete.
Right. Now, keep this in mind, that every dollar that drops to the bottom line, we can't automatically send it to unrestricted or unassigned. The reason why is because we have a fund balance. We have a fund balance policy that says, hey, as your budget increases, we're going to do 16.5% to budget stabilization. We're going to do 16.5% to disaster recovery. So right off the bat, every dollar that drops down, I can't put a dollar into unassigned because my budget is increasing. And so therefore, my fund balance policy authorized by the board said, no, we're going to be taking of the budget, we're putting money into budget stabilization. So even though, if we were to go back, even though the whole town has 20-something million dollars, right? But the general fund may only have 8 or 9. Keep in mind that 8 or 9 isn't all unrestricted, right? I can only spend really unassigned dollars. And so what we did is we said, okay, in the healthy years, that drops to the bottom line. And then we can take on those projects. And so what the numbers you're seeing here unassigned, we took out these estimated costs of these projects.
So it is possible, even though, as Michael said, our costs will increase year to year. If we've made the right decisions for 26, 27, you could possibly have a windfall in 29 and 30 if we've made the right decisions the first 3 years.
And you have to be careful with the word windfall because 75% of that windfall is predicated right on the property values. You know, not going up crazy. Listen, no one anticipated double-digit rates of growth, but at the same time, no one anticipated inflation at 10.2%, right? And so, and of course, the board always seems to do the right thing, right? We slid and we turned and we were able to manage it. When we saw that costs were going up 10%, you guys didn't just give out 2.5% rate increases to the employees. I mean, you realize that cost of living in this part of the world is extremely high. And so we did that. We reacted. And in addition, we were in the middle of building a fire station. And so we did that well.
So before you move off that, and something we'll have to keep in mind, and then again, this kind of leads to our budget discussions. You'll see the 250,000 in there for the sinking fund for the fire rescue department. We may want to start looking at adjusting that. What we also may want to start thinking about too is the discretionary sales tax, which has been our capital bankroll, if you will, our account to take care of all of our capital expenses. That disappears on December 31st of this year. And that we usually get about 400 to 450 grand a year to do capital projects. That's gone. So we may have to revisit our fund balance policy and think, do we need a different sinking fund to assign some of the unassigned for future costs, whether it's fire, police, capital expense, sidewalks. I mean, we have to think about those things that we may have to revisit it a little bit and maybe do maybe a year for fine tuning with the loss of the discretionary sales tax to revisit that fund balance policy and give it a little massage to recognize we're a full service community. We might need to tweak that a little bit to protect us on those out years a little bit.
Right. Yeah. And you can see there, right, 2023, right? Remember when we had to move money to the fire rescue? We had the general fund, right? We had the general fund commit dollars, right? So you can see that in 2023, right? But then you can see, all right, we're starting to put it back. We're almost done here. We're starting to put it back. But you also notice here, this adjusted unassigned fund balance for major projects. So what I did is I grabbed, let me go back. So I grabbed, oops, one too many. So I grabbed these numbers here, what I'm anticipating to be added to. Then I deducted what I thought these numbers here were going to be. And then I adjusted our fund balance appropriately. You know,
that accounts for those projects.
Yes. Yeah.
So that fund balance is still good because it already accounts for the
Oh,
expenditures.
so you're taking off the millions
That's
and
us.
that you're basically taking off 3.5 million over the,
Yep.
oh,
Yeah.
And that's our insurance.
Yeah.
oh,
We got it funded somehow.
that's really, no, I thought I was
So right here,
calculating in my
right?
head.
So that's what I put. I put adjusted unassigned fund balance for the major projects.
But
So-
in those years,
Yes,
so like,
yeah. So that's why I kind of had to have years.
so if we took it out sooner, I mean, we
Yeah,
might
that-
take a hit to it.
Right. That's fine. But that's what I did, right? So when you sit here and you go, hey, we
I didn't know
we
that.
got right. And so, yeah, no. We need these surpluses. You can see that the surpluses go down, right? Why is that? Well, because the rate of growth of my expenses, 5.3, right, exceed that of my rate of income coming in the door. And so, right, so we need that. It's not that, hey, this is a great place. No. We plan on using that and smartly, as interest rates continue to rise, right? Smartly, we're going to earn money on the money that we've accumulated. And we're going to pay out on the projects when we can get around to it. But keep in mind that, today's cost, we've escalated that, could continue to go up. So.
Well, I like that, not taking debt
Yeah.
and paying with cash and maintaining a reasonable
Yeah.
level of unassigned.
Yep.
So
Right.
I very much like it.
Yeah.
And I like the conservative estimates
Yeah.
in there. So
Yeah.
hopefully we'll
Yep.
turn out even better if
And we'll look
these-
at this every
right,
year,
yeah,
right?
right. We're
You know,
gonna look
we'll-
at it every
we'll
year
look
like we
hey,
always do, but
It was difficult in the past years.
Right,
to-
right.
To compare because I'm like,
there are too many uncertainties. Yeah.
I'm building a fire station.
Right, right.
I'm paying for two fire crews, you know, and it was just, but we got through it, right? We got by it and now we keep moving forward.
So on the general fund balance, that one, what's
Yes.
other? What is other for? I forget.
Other is for, you'll see that it stays the same. Other is typically those prepaid or that I don't know what they're going to be in the future, but so I just left a placeholder in there for, it's for prepaid. Remember, this is this is your equity, right?
Yeah.
And so when you have open purchase orders that haven't been
Okay.
completed yet. So I didn't know. So these numbers here change. These two numbers here, budget stabilization and disaster, that changes with our budget.
Right.
As our budget increases, those increase as well. These right here, I kept the same because I know that there is going to be some type of prepaid or we have open encumbrances that we did not yet fulfill or pay out in cash at the end of the year, but we are going to. Again, that's an estimate.
Yeah.
And then this number here, obviously, I took the audited financial statements, figured out right now, this is where we're going right here. We're almost done with the audit here. That would be our unassigned right now. And then from 25 to 30, I added our appropriations to reserves, and then I deducted what major capital we're going to experience in those time periods. Remember, it doesn't go dollar for dollar because like 7 or 30 something % of a dollar has to go into these buckets up here.
So we definitely don't have to wait for those projects. We could move them up sooner.
So long as there's just, it takes time to design.
Right.
So
No,
we will,
no, no,
multiple
no,
year-
I
we don't
understand,
have to
but-
wait till 29.
Right.
Yeah.
If we like what the architect, and we can talk about that project offline, but you know, some of those are out in 6 months, 9 months in design. So by the time you do that, you like it, you guys say, maybe tweak this, don't do that, go out to bid. So Skender goes through that process for 3 to 4 months.
Yeah. It takes
Finally
time.
get some bids, award a contract, it starts to, it frustrates a lot of folks. I know we have a new commissioner up here, you know, government speed is, it's a little bit slower than other speeds, but it's purposed,
Right.
and done for a reason. We have to do everything statutorily and in very distinct steps.
And so I kind of did the same thing, right? Same type of philosophy. We have all the other funds, right? And I did the same thing. So now we stopped the general fund. Now we're looking at the building fund. The building fund continues to do well. You know, so you can see there, I did an estimate. I did an estimate, a very conservative estimate of what their revenue was going to grow by, what their labor, what their operating, what other was going to grow by. I kept, so we don't muddy the water, I kept the transfers out that they send back to the general fund. I kept that the same, you know, and so this fund here is doing extremely well. Matter of fact, on the next one,
But the transfers out
Yes.
should probably grow, don't you think? Wouldn't it not grow with?
I would think so.
Yeah, well, yeah, yes. But I wanted to not muddy up the water.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? I
Okay, but
wanted to make
I
it,
would be in favor of increasing them at the rate of inflation or I don't know what is the appropriate
So,
rate.
yeah, we
but-
have a lot to talk about with the building fund during the budget.
Okay,
process. I mean,
okay.
we really do. We really have to.
Yeah.
Cause their equity,
Right.
their fund balance, once we get over, is grown to a point
Right.
of concern.
Right.
You're like, why is too much
Right.
fund balance
concern.
a concern? Well, there are statutory limits on how much we can carry forward. And this is a year we're going to have to start taking some deep dives into reduction of fees, recognizing they do have some liability in our capital projects, which they generally haven't paid over the years. We have to recognize that. And then we also have to recognize, and we haven't yet, and David and I were talking about the administrative cost we haven't captured for doing Gulfstream. So the building department pays a
Right.
big transfer in. Gulfstream hasn't paid anything. And I don't know that we're obligated to create and manage a fund balance for them the same way. So we have to, with the increase in administrative cost, they need to pay their share, their
Absolutely.
liability for everything. there's some liability in capital for us doing all this. So
But we did include that. And so here on the bottom, we call it allocation to general fund. It's GS, Gulfstream allocation. So what we did is we said, hey, of the revenue that Gulfstream produces, we're going to assume that 25% of that should go back to the general fund because it's covering Marshall's time, the commission's time, our general overhead, the increases in our liability insurance and whatnot. And so you can see that we kept the transfers the same, but we also added this, no, you're going to kick in estimated 25% of the Gulfstream, right? So that's why you also see that even with that hit, they may have to pull a little bit from their reserves. Well, but that's because I'm pulling out 192K here. So they might have to kick in, $4,000.
And in this fund, we should get to a point where we see that a little bit, that we're taking reserves into operating to cover the cost of its expenses, because it's grown to a point where we have to recognize that and bring that down. So it's kind of the opposite.
Yeah.
Right.
And the other trick, which Jeff compels, and he'll make that argument to you, how unfortunately financial world doesn't recognize it and see it the same way he does. Some of these large projects we take in those funds have to last the life of the project for inspection over 3 years. Statute sloppy and clumsy on recognizing that. Legislators wrote it like you're building a single family home.
Right.
So they only see a 15 to 18 month window. They don't recognize a research product, redoing a condo could take 5 years, especially if they don't have enough money and they take it bits and pieces, tower at a time. Maybe they get a bad, we're there the whole time through that. So while we got to reduce it, we can't collapse it immediately, because we do have to recognize we have some responsibility in these out years, not only for us, but also for Gulfstream. So long as we're making a concerted effort, I think we're in the spirit and intent of that statute. And it's just how we want to address it, how you guys want to address it. I'll give you some recommendations, how you want to tweak it moving
Right.
forward.
Yeah.
But it's something this is the year we have to start doing it.
Okay.
It just.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what this is, right? This is their fund balance. Their fund balance doesn't have a restriction, you know what I mean? As far as disaster relief and all that other stuff. And so, right. So their numbers just drop to the bottom line. And that's what I put up here. There are certain restrictions on the fund balances within this fund. So we just got to keep an eye on that. If it grows too much, we have to spring into action.
And we're
Monitoring.
we will be recommending a somewhat aggressive fee reduction moving forward.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, maybe not to somebody that writes a check for a permit that might be like, that doesn't seem like much of relief, but we're working our way to bring that down.
Right. That's true.
Okay.
That's true. So now we looked at the general fund, right? Big picture. The biggest thing there was, how much property value is going to increase. We looked at the overall. We looked at the major projects that it has that are to be funded through our reserves, as well as the hopefully additional contributions to those reserves. We looked at the building fund, right? And now we're looking at the water fund. Water fund is kind of interesting. Water and sewer are very, very interesting, because here's why. You need to be able to bill your customer enough to cover operating, to cover debt service, to cover capital, right? Not only that though, but you also have to cover, renewal replacement, that estimated 5 years stuff or 5% that continues to break down. So we did, if you stop and think that potentially inflation is going to grow at about 3.5%, then we're going to need, so that's why what we did here is we said, all right, we're going to assume that rates are going to increase 5% every year over and over, right? The reason why is because I still have to cover costs here. Now, the good news is this. The good news is we really start to pay off some of our debt. And I'll show you that in the next one here. So this right here is our debt, right? In the water Yeah, in the water fund. You can see here, you have a loan number, when the months are paid, the annual debt service, when it matures, and look at these interest rates. Remember those good old days? You remember that? Yeah. I mean, those are good times. I gotta admit. But anyway, so at the end of the day, we do have some that fall off. I mean, and they're structured, sometimes the payments, they're bonds, so they're every 6 months, right? And so we do have them starting to come down. And as you can see here, you know, the debt service right here, right, starts to trickle down. You know, we go from the 8s to the 6s to the 5s by the end of 2030. And at this point here, this is when we can start putting money back into our reserves for this account. Right now at the top here, you can see that we're anticipating that we're probably going to need, but again, it's slowly diminishing, right? It's slowly diminishing. But keep in mind, we have this fund stand on its own, right? We have this fund stand on its own, when in the past, it was never like that. It was always the general fund subsidizing, right? But we have, this one is graduated college, right? It's going to get out there and get a job and start paying some groceries. So, but yeah, so that was our assumption there. So again, we'll continue to look at that, but just for planning purposes, other revenue here is just the interest on their account balance. And if you look, this is the debt service, right? Look at debt balances drop by almost 60% by the end of the 5-year forecast, right? So that's awesome. And so this is what the unrestricted fund balance will be during that time. You know, it'll hover around 2, you know, by the end of the forecast, you know, we'll be up to a little bit over $3 million. But, you know, during this time here, you know, we do draw on the reserves a little bit here. And then here we start to kick the money back. But what's the assumption? The assumption is all right, rates have got to grow at 5%. If 3.5% is just a rate of inflation, right? Then I have to grow my revenue a little bit more because I've got to cover capital. Capital is not an operating expense, right? Capital is more, nope, I got to put a new transmission in this old clunker, right? And so, yeah.
Well, before we did all this with the rates, it was a 3% annual increase.
Yes.
So
Yep.
it kind of makes sense because inflation is much more
Right.
than what it was.
Yep. And that was
it's-
3% when the general fund was still kicking in dollars
Subsidizing,
to it.
right,
Yeah. Yeah.
right.
right.
So
Yep.
when you compare it to what it was,
Yep.
it's not bad.
No.
I mean, it's not bad.
No,
And
it's not.
you guys could do your annual review and look into all the details.
Yes.
I always do that. I said,
Yeah.
Well,
mayors
I mean,
will want to take a look at
I
all
mean,
those.
do we
We have
even
all the
need to?
data.
I mean, do we even, I mean,
We have-
this is
right.
really it. I
Yeah.
mean, like, I mean,
Right. I can't see a time, you know, when there could be a time when you start to really pay off these balances, right? You know, we're at 5 million here, 4 million here, 3 million here. Debt is really starting to come down on this, right? And so that is also a light at the end of the tunnel.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And so when you're not making that debt service payment, when you pay that mortgage off, it's like you're paying yourself finally.
Yeah, it's
So,
relief.
right.
I guess the only thing that could kind of throw a wrench is if consumption changes, but are you seeing
Yeah.
anything?
No,
Any,
no, not really. Actually,
pretty
consumption
steady.
is doing well. You have to understand this too. Highland Beach, you may not know this, but we're very seasonal here. No. And so you can have great base fees, right? But it's the consumption. But here's the good news. We've balanced out rates where it's not such a disservice to one class of customers versus the other, right? Homeowner versus a condominium, right? Condominiums are your biggest users of water, rightfully so, right? But very, very seasonal, right? And so the good news is that we've designed the rates to where base fees can carry us during those slower months when consumption really starts to go down.
Dave,
Yes,
it's a question I would ask corporate, but I want to ask it in the public sector.
go ahead.
it's a conservative approach.
Yep.
Is it recession proof?
Utilities typically are. Yeah. And not only that though, but let me tell you this. Utilities during bad times, there's a price elasticity, right? Which basically says that, hey, my rates went up. Well, I'm cutting my consumption. What we've seen about human behavior is they typically do that for the short period of time, right? They go right back to taking longer showers and refilling pools and this and again, so utilities are typical. You need water, right? We love the greenery around here. We've changed out old meters. That is probably your number one thing you can do. You have, because the old meters, it's like a cash register, right? The old meters lose about 1.5% accuracy for a year for the first 5 years, and then they kind of level out. But a lot of communities don't change out their meters. What they do is they just keep raising rates because they're like, oh my gosh, we're not making it. But what we did at Highland Beach, we started to change out. We started a meter change out program that said, hey, those older meters that have been in there since World War II, you know what? They've done their service. We're pulling them out. We're putting latest technology that measures the water a little bit more accurate and things like that. But see, residents typically don't mind. I'm not saying they don't mind the rate increase, but this is something they can control. You know, this is a user fee and it's designed by class. It looks at to say, hey, condominiums use a lot more of the resource than a single family home. And so we balance out those rates to treat each class equally. And so, yeah. And so it is, I would think that it is pretty much recession proof.
But we at one point increased the rates like 15%, 12%, 10%.
Yep.
And we thought there would potentially be a reduction in consumption, and there wasn't at all. If maybe it was the meters that caused the increase in consumption because we were counting the water better.
Yeah.
But,
Right.
and a lot of the consumption is also irrigation. So, when it's dry, people run their sprinklers. They don't, your pool, the water evaporate, they have to fill it up.
Right.
And that's a big driver of the water consumption. So after those big increases, I'm assuming since we didn't see a drop in consumption. And then the other thing, 90% of our dwelling units are condos. They don't actually get the water bill. It's the management that gets the water bill. So the condo people don't even really see it, and the single families didn't have a reduction in consumption either. So I think that's another major feature of it is the individual unit owners don't see the bills. So there's nothing, they can't, no one's going to stop using the water. And everybody wants green lawns and have to fill their pools and
Refill pools.
so, yeah, I don't see it coming, if anything, I think the consumption has been going up, but.
Right. And it will.
I think that, if we wanted them to conserve, then we may publicize it more, make it known. But
We do.
the condo owners that, it's in the HOA, the COA.
Right.
And that goes up and they see fleetingly, how it goes up if they actually look at it. But it's the bottom number,
Right.
Oh my God. It's
Which is a
$100 more,
combination
it's
of
$200
insurance
more.
and water. and
Cable.
It's kind of all in there, right?
But I will tell you this, most people pay more money for cable
Right.
than they do. I mean, you know that we still measure water in thousands of gallons. For the rate that we charge, most municipalities, I can't buy 1,000 M&Ms for what I'm doing for 1,000. So
Is the changeover on the updating the meters?
Yes.
Was
A big deal,
significant.
yeah.
I know in my community it was.
That's a big deal.
significant.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
And we work, listen, we're family here.
Right, right,
We
right.
work with them. We
Right.
show them. We can download all their usage for
Yeah.
90 days and we
Yeah.
show them and they understand it and we work with them.
Yeah, it's great.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So same idea on the sewer side. Now, I will tell you this, I did not account 4, when you're relining your sewers, over time, it does going to save you money because I want you to think about a sewer pipe that has cracks in it. Then I want you to think about high tide. And I want you to think how salt water gets into the pipes. And then I want you to think about, wow, we're sending raw sewage and salt water to Delray to treat per 1,000 gallons, right? Delray doesn't sit there and go, oh, well, this is salt water. We're going to give them a discount. Oh, this is sewer water. We're going to charge them. So you will see when we line those pipes, you will see a reduction theoretically if they don't raise rates. But how many gallons that they are treating should go down because of what they call I&I, infiltration and intrusion. You should see that. You should see a break in that because that's notorious. Your sidewalks crack, everything's cracked, everything under there is cracking. When high tide comes up, salt water goes into those pipes, goes right to Delray. Delray doesn't want to treat it. It's bad for their plant as well. But at the end of the day, you're going to see that. So again, this one here, same idea. This is the sewer. We assume the same 5%. This right here, we don't have any employees in there, but the sewer fund does transfer money over to the water fund because we use water fund operators to check the sewer lift stations to do all that type of work. And so you can see there that, hey, same kind of conservative approach here that, hey, revenues are going to grow by this. We're going to have sewer treatment costs, our other operational costs, our other, I would say, baseline capital. Those are lift stations constantly. It's a corrosive environment, right? It's only second to owning a boat of how much money you'll spend on your sewer department. It's just because of the corrosive nature of it and it's underground. So, but anyway, and then you can see here, we have the transfers. This is transfer from the sewer fund to the water fund. And you can see that over time, we do start to put money back into the reserves. Now let's go to, so this was our major project, right? This was our major project right here, right? The sewer project was the #1 priority project. And for capital projects, we right now, the estimated cost, we kind of went back and forth as the manager told you that we were looking at this type of loan, looking at this. Finally, when the dust settled, we said, you know what? We could probably just do this on our own. We'll work with legal, figure out how much, we'll figure out how many days cash that we have in here. And I sent that to Marshall and I couldn't get it and put it in there. We'll figure out how many days cash. And I think we were at, if I wanted to have 180 days cash, so days cash is this calculation that says how much is my annual operating expenditures less capital. The reason why is because capital is more like, it's not an operating feature, right? It's not an emergency. So when you look at days cash, you're sitting there saying, hey, worst case scenario, how long can I last? How long can I keep things running with the amount of cash I have now? So when we looked at the sewer fund, we said, hey, it looks like your spend rate is about $5,000 per day. So if I take that $5,000 and change per day and I divide it by the amount of cash that you have in your system, I look at it and say, okay, you have this amount of days. I think you had a little bit over 200 and something days. Oh, do you have that?
So right now, the sewer has currently as cash is 433 days. So if we take it to 180, we have 253 excess days, which means we could use and hold that target of 180. We could free up about 1.4 million out of the sewer fund. We still manage our cash on hand. And then and that covers that 1.3 I was telling you, the cost of the project. Now the commission is, how do we want to pay for the engineering piece?
Right.
How much is the engineering piece?
Say 200, 250, maybe less, maybe
So the
more.
2 million on the prior page is overestimated a little bit.
Well, at the time we did that,
Oh,
we didn't
that's
get
what you
this.
had.
Yeah.
So
we didn't have that
so
in.
now you're thinking it's 1.5 total?
I'd probably say 1.6 just to be.
1.6 total?
So you need like $187,000. So we could easily have the general fund cover that cost and not worry about Moving
180
funds are.
is an arbitrary,
It's a-
number. I mean,
it's a-
we can go down to like 120.
Yeah,
for
no,
a
right. And you can
few-
see here, right now, right, estimated, right? So you have, so I'm thinking that at the end of this year, you're going to have 2.4, almost $2.5 million, right? And so if I got to drop this down to $1 million,
It's
right?
okay.
Well, that's all right. I mean, because at the end of the day, you know, I'm going to start to continue to put money into it. Matter of fact, my assumption is your sewer treatment cost is going to go down because you're not treating salt water. Yeah.
That's what I'd be in favor of because I mean, I think 180 is even high. I mean, I
Yeah,
thought it was
I-
120
It
is what our
and-
target was.
Right. And well, what I told Marshall is I said, the rating agencies, Moody's, Standard and Poor's, Fitch, when you're going out for public dollars, right? They like to see 180. They like to see more, right? They like to see 300. They love to see utility with cash because they also know what I know, that it's only second to owning a boat of how much money you're going to be shelling out. And they know that, you know, it is capital intensive. But see, we're different, right? We have the lift stations and the lines. We don't really have a plant, right? We don't have a sewer plant. We do have our cousins that treat it for us, and we're thankful for that. But at the end of the day, that's really where the cost. So we'll rehab a lot of these lift stations all the time. And when you have sewer lining that lines it, brand new pipe, great. And that's fantastic.
That's what I think.
So I didn't put a ending slide. I apologize.
That was exciting.
It was.
So, yeah, so,
Such good
but, you know,
news.
look it over, mull it over, you know, and what we'll do, and this really kicks off our budget season, right? Now we start to get into, now we'll look at, hey, David, was your assumptions correct about that? What did they come in at? And every year we'll keep looking at it. And then what we'll do is we'll edit it, right? Maybe property insurance finally comes down a little bit and it's not growing so rapidly, and we can update it, but we're always constantly looking long-term.
Thank you.
Thank
Well,
you,
yeah,
David.
sure.
Excellent presentation. Good news. Thank you for all the good news.
Bravo,
Thank you
bravo.
for all the guidance. We really, really appreciate it. Yes.
Do we need public comment?
Oh,
Nice.
any public comments? Okay, sure.
Rick Greenwald, Tranquility Drive. I have a lot of questions. I'll say most of them. I'm a member of the Financial Advisory Board, so a lot of questions there. These are just a couple of questions as a homeowner rather than a Financial Advisory Board member. So one thing that I've noticed over the years is that a lot of the checks that we write or expenses that we have as a homeowner now are really, it seems at least, are going more towards user fees and away from ad valorem taxes ever since we created separate departments for sewer, waste management, and water. And I just wondered that as that trend is going on, as it was pointed out a couple of times before, I mean, some of the water and sewer rates, instead of going up 3 or 4% for a period of years, were actually on purpose, well thought out, no criticism. But we're going up 15%, 12%, 10%, I mean, a lot. And I just wondered where we are with that now in terms of what percentage of the typical homeowner's bill experience, if you will, is now user fees versus ad valorem taxes. And also roughly, if it's available, how that compares to other towns as we've headed in this separate department. And I understand some of that's mandated by the state and so on and so forth. But I was just kind of, as a homeowner, curious about that because, I mean, a year or two ago, our solid waste management fees literally went up by 100% in 1 year. I mean, not massive sums of money, but I mean, it went up 100%. So anyway, I was curious about that. And the other thing that I'm curious about for your consideration, because I don't know what best practice is, I'm sure you guys do, but I don't, just when we're talking about capital items that are designed to last for 20 or 30 years, like sewer lining projects. Is that something where it's common best practice, if you will, to pay it off because, oh, we got a couple of million lying around, should we pay that off? Or is best practice to finance something like that so that the people who are going to be benefiting from it 15 years down the road actually pay a share of that as opposed to just everybody, yeah, we got the money, let's just pay it off. And I'm not talking about that for general operating expenses, obviously. I'm talking about for the kind of capital projects that are really designed to be depreciated over a, you know, whatever it is. I don't know what sewer lines are, but from what Marshall was talking about, a 20, 30-year period. So those were just some things to consider. And I don't know the answers to them, but I want to at least bring it up. Thanks.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, you know, and we looked at that. We looked at the, 1% interest rates are great, right? We can take out another loan, right? And we were more, I can't talk on Marshall's behalf, but I was looking at it as sense of urgency. No. We can't be bogged down with an application to the state of Florida for SRF funds and then sending them back. We wanted to move relatively quickly and because we wanted to get this project done. But in most cases, when you take out the sense of urgency, it's probably wise to match up long-lived assets. But you know, sometimes when you don't have to take on debt, it's a good thing as well. So
I guess I can share my own personal opinion on this. So when I first got involved in the commission, I took on the project. I led the project, or I don't know what you'd call it. I was a sponsor, maybe. I don't know what you call it, of trying to figure out what is the right amount of the fund balance, like the fund balance analysis. And I think what came out of that was, we solidly continued the policy of like 1 month's worth goes to budget stabilization, 1 month's worth goes to disaster recovery. And then the concern, at least my own personal concern, was how much should that unassigned even be? Because it seemed like I felt like we were just kind of blindly, any extra money just kept going to unassigned. We just kept, and that amount kept growing. And so as part of that analysis, I looked at what other towns do. I looked at the town of Highland Beach, our tax rates compared to other towns. And what we ultimately decided was what the commission ultimately decided our fund policy would be was 1 month's worth to budget stabilization, 1 month's worth to disaster recovery. And as a side note, disaster recovery, we came up with that amount after an analysis of all our insurances. So we came up with that 1 month was right because we have a lot of good insurance coverage. And then we basically said, unassigned should be about like $2 million was kind of what we were saying. And then also took a look at like debt. And if you look at like Manalapan, Palm Beach, like some of those types of towns, no debt. They do not have any debt. But like the small, the towns where, it's, I don't know, less affluent towns, they do take on a lot more debt. And when you look, and Palm Beach, I mean, of course, their assessed values are very high, but they have some of the lowest tax rates. And one component is when you look at all those other little towns, you look at how much of their tax rate is attributed to debt. Even Boca Raton has a good amount. Their libraries have a ton of debt. You know, there's a good amount of just their tax rate is just because of debt. So if we want to keep, in my opinion, one good way to keep our user experience and our, you know, user fees, and I'm talking about taxes, water, you know, utilities. One way to keep that down is by not having debt. Like we see it in the water rates. We have to have at least 5% annual increases because we have to cover the debt. Even though it's at low rates, we have to cover that by having larger increases. And like you said, once we pay off, it's like paying off the mortgage. Then maybe we can consider lowering the annual increases. So that's one big reason why I'm in favor of not taking on debt, because that way we don't have this amount that's, you know, it's this piece of your tax rate that you will always have in order to cover that debt. And, you know, even compared to Boca Raton, our rates are less than Boca Raton. I mean, they have parks and things like that. They have, you know, other types of amenities. So that's why me in particular, that's why I'm in favor of not having debt, even at the lower interest rates, because I think it results in a lower millage rate for our town. I mean, I don't know, you know, what all the other commissioners, how they feel, but that's how I feel.
Just to keep the conversation going. No, just kidding. On the sanitary sewer project, I think this one is kind of a unique project based on our experience having a hard time getting bidders to bid the project. And the SRF is a neo-traditional engineering, design, bid, build, finance process. It's very rigorous. They have to have engineers' estimates. You have to have environmental assessments and all these other things done, which are good to have the assessments done, but we're just lining a pipe. We're not redigging, but you have to go through this rigorous process, and they use what we found in that process. And it's kind of uncomfortable to say, but the engineers come up with this really conservative estimate, and this engineering estimate becomes a record, right? So every bidder bids to the engineer's estimate, not to what it costs to do the project. So in a sense, we found here, it inflated the cost of the project almost like 200%, because when they said we were going to start doing all of the sewer leads. So the engineer's like, well, we got to do all the sewer leads. We got to cut up A1A. I'm like, FDOT's not letting us on A1A and cutting it up now. We got to wait a little bit. So we said, okay, let's scope the project down. So they took that out and they said, okay, your project's a $3.5 million project without engineering. I was like, well, I got authorization from the residents for $3.5 million based on an estimate that you gave me at 2. So they're being really conservative to cover themselves, the CYA. And what you go to the SRF, all the bidders are going to know it's a state process. So then they get the engineer's estimate and said, okay, I can do it for the engineer's estimate or 5% off the engineer's estimate. We went directly to a vendor and said, what could you do? And luckily it's on a piggyback out of Illinois, which is a national Omnia contract. So that's legit. And we can get it done for, you know, a third the price.
Incredible.
I think this one's just kind of unique and it kind of falls off. If it was
Incredible.
build the water treatment plant from
Right.
scratch, I think we would be definitely in the more that traditional process. And then you got to pay money because the state sells bonds, you got to pay them $100,000 for
Right.
all of their
Those
financing
expensive.
costs that
Right.
get stacked in there.
Right.
The rates were great, but I think this project was so one-off that, you know, even if they weren't on the Omnia contract, Skender was prepared and work with Len to, in the best interest of the town, hire this vendor to complete the
Right.
project just because that price is so good. And I was glad it's an Omnia contract. So now we're totally covered. But this project was really unique. But traditionally, as David said, and I've advocated before, is when you do these large capital projects, you bond it over 30 years, that useful life, spread the benefit to future users. I just think this project was just so different. And it's been chasing us I've been here for 6.5 years, almost 7 years. and this has been like, you got to fix the sewer system, and it's been so difficult to study it, find it, bid it, fail, bid it again, no bidders, go this process, go this way. So I think this one's kind of a one-off. Outside of the philosophical discussion of less debt has benefits, a lot of benefits. It's just, this project was so unique and one-off. But again, third lowest tax rate. I like to promote ourselves a little bit here on TV. Third lowest tax rate in the county. Our water rates are in the lower half of all water rates in South Florida. Waste, we were way under. We had a sweetheart deal with Waste Management, and they really got mad and didn't want to continue it because we wouldn't raise during COVID. So they brought us up to speed. So now we're on par and in the middle with our waste cost. So, you know, we're keeping an eye on all those things, but
I felt like all those.
benchmarking is always great. I'm a big, strong advocate.
Yeah,
It keeps us-
absolutely.
It keeps the rails out in front of us.
Absolutely. And we look very good when we benchmark, but yeah, all those extraneous expenses are also, if we can avoid those, I would much prefer avoid all, I forget what you call it, the legal expenses and the, you know.
Like I always tell like kids out there, the best job to have is to be a bond attorney. I mean,
Yeah.
they make,
Agreed.
Yeah.
they make a
You get a
lot of money.
percentage.
It may
Right.
seem boring, but there's a lot of cost.
Yes.
Thinking of our friend Skip, I mean, how much we have to pay to
Right.
issue a note
Yeah.
is it's extraordinary, and and they don't even take a fee like my hours in. It's a percentage of the issue, and it's the business model, and
Right.
it
So to
it gets
avoid that
expensive real quick.
saves the town money. It definitely saves the town money in the long run. So that's another big reason why I want to avoid that. So I don't know if anyone else has any other comments about it.
No, I'd like the conservative, the conservative bent on this. And we have the funds. We certainly have the flexibility to achieve all of this. So I think, you know, being steadfast in keeping up that then, and if we can, you know, it's wonderful having the extra funds and being sound fiscally. And that's what our population wants here. So,
Right.
yeah, I want to continue that.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I agree with the mayor. I always like to be conservative. You never know when that rainy day you're going to need that money, and who knows what's in the future. So,
But I want to acknowledge what you said. I mean, I certainly appreciate you can see it, what the comments you had made in the condos when they were hit with these huge assessments and the reserves at the same time, paying all at once for the next 15, 20 years of a capital project, rather than being spaced out so that the next generation will have their share. So there's a lot of resentment on that, but you have to accomplish it at a given time. So it's a balance, but we're not facing that
No.
type
not
of incident. You know, I see also with the changes, it's a little off topic, but I see some with the condo reform bill. I didn't study it, but in my glance of it, I saw that one of the things is, okay, now you can take a home equity line. Now you can borrow. And they're making it easier to borrow for the reserves. Well, there's a lot of, I know my community, when the interest rate was 2.5, 2.6 with no debt, and the banks were there begging, you know, saying, well, the community voted it down. They didn't want the debt. Of course, at that period of time, they didn't realize the amount that they would be looking at. But that's the same thing, that debt, and you're still paying that interest rate.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. If we're done with that item, we can move
Is
on.
this our comment time?
Sure, yes, if
Oh.
you have something to say.
I wish we had 5,000 people listening to your presentation, David, because you explain numbers and where a layperson can really understand it. And I think the questions that were at, the comments that were made at the end, I wish we had 5,000 more people sitting here to be able to listen to it, because it was an excellent presentation. Can we make a comment?
Of course. Yes. absolutely.
I thought I'm sorry, Richard left. I thought the article on the front page of the coastal on A1A that he had done was an excellent article.
Oh, so we're still on the
Okay,
item
so
of the
that's okay. I
5-year
wasn't-
forecast.
it's
I wasn't
fine.
sure. Oh, we'll do that in a couple
Good, I'll get
more
back to that.
things, but anything else on the financial
No,
forecast?
I thought it was explanatory and simplified to a point that we all understood.
Excellent. So with that, we can move on to the next item. Item 11B, consideration of commissioner attendance at the annual National League of Cities City Summit 2025.
Yeah, so I know Linelda had tried to gauge some interest of folks. We did when it was in Tampa, went to the National League, or Linelda and I ended up going. Really beneficial. And now we want to just gauge the interest if you're going. That way I can budget appropriately. And you have it's in the you could go. It's in the budget, so you have the flexibility. We just want to know in order to get some of the better deals on registrations and stuff, we have to do it sooner rather than later. We just wanted to know, are you all okay with this? Or if only a group of your colleagues go, are you okay with this? So there isn't, I don't want there to be conflict like, well, I didn't know. So
I know you said it previously, but when is it and where is it? I know you.
it's in November and it's in Salt Lake. And again, you do have a policy. We have a town policy that is the one conference that this commission is allowed outside of the Florida League of Cities. You get to go to the National League so long as it's in the United States. It's in the policy, so it's available to you if you want to go. It can be a very rewarding experience if you're engaged. I thought the speakers were good. I thought the dialogues were great. I thought it was just a fresh set of eyes and voices. And again, you do get a broader spectrum of individuals to speak with in similar situations. They have a whole small town track that I followed. I thought it was very rewarding. Got to meet small town folks, from all over the country. How are you handling this? How does this work? And it's good. It was good educational. So we just want to know, do you want to go? And yes, and then we'll plan it for you. We'll take care of the rest. So.
Start down the end.
Yeah.
I have done a number of events in Salt Lake City. Salt Lake City in November can be a little cold, Marshall. I am looking forward to Orlando because I understand the content in Orlando is outstanding, and also the weather is outstanding. Do I have any problem with my colleagues going? Not at all, and they should go without me. But it can be, as you said, national speakers. It'll be a little bit different, but as a new member to the commission, I'm looking forward to the individuals from Florida speaking in Orlando, and I think that's a good first step for myself. But I understand with more experience, people might want to hear more of the national speakers.
Well, I'm very interested in going. It attracted my attention when I heard about it in Florida. I don't know exactly what we'll get out of it, but being on the national stage and hearing what is going on in municipalities all over the country and what is available from Washington, everything's changing. It's in a flux. But we have, I think it's important for us to be there, to see and to attend all these wonderful committees and what they're doing. And I know that their major location is in DC. So on an ongoing basis or on an annual, if they have it in DC, that'll make it a little easier cost-wise on the town. But yes, I'd be most interested in doing it.
Yeah, I'm in. Every time I go to a conference, like you're saying, I always learn something. I gather information and always informative, and I love them actually. So
I'm in as well.
I'm supportive of my colleagues going, but I'm not able to for various reasons. But I think it's great. Thank you very much for the three of you who are willing to go. Please, bring back any.
Will.
Yeah.
Take good notes.
Thank you for being willing to go. And I
So I
think
should
that's
bring
great.
my
I think
bring
it's
my
really great.
skis.
Great. Move on.
Mhm.
Okay, now Commissioner comments, Commissioner
So
Janowski.
as I was saying before Richard left, I thought the article on the coastal was excellent as far as A1A is concerned. My concern in reading the article Milani Park is definitely going to be there. It was the crossing that I see taking place now in A1A. And if I was to have the power to make a decision, I'm so pro on underpasses that they have on the other side of Spanish River. My concern is what's happening in A1A right now, the accidents. I witnessed one in front of the Coronado, and thinking of 100 people crossing the street, even with a stoplight, kind of concerns me. So it isn't about the Milani Park going in. That's a given. I'm more concerned with the traffic flow of people crossing the street with the coming and going of 100 automobiles and what it could cause. I witnessed a situation in front of the Coronado where the lights went off. Okay, 2 cars stopped. The 3rd car behind the 2 cars spins around and goes right through the walk as 2 people are crossing. And we knocked down 2 poles in front of the Coronado. I think whether it's people that are there texting, whether it's just forgetfulness, or they're not familiar with the area. So my concern, again, going back to where the fire chief and the police are talking about, is safety and health right now of our community. Wonderful to have a place where I could walk into as far as a park and spend a little time talking to my wife, but I'm very concerned about the crosswalk. And I'm wondering if that's an issue that we can actually delve into with the state, or is it a given?
I mean, I can tell you what I don't know, you do, I don't know. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Just on the Milani Park, we're going to be sending a letter. Our transportation engineer has reviewed it, found some limits to the review that the county has taken to date, and spells out their nexus of thought on what should be done or what applies. We are going to send that to the county and say, and we'll probably copy the FDOT secretary, the district secretary, just so they know. Maybe I'll throw one over to Peggy so she can push it up to the director. But just to express our concerns for that reason, to be on record, officially saying pedestrians got to be the #1 goal there. And you can't just slash the lines across and just let them go, or put up a sign and say it's good. You got to really do a thoughtful analysis. And that's what we're going to be sending out here this week. Of course, you guys will get a copy of before it goes out, but we got the engineer finally to put it in a usable format, got a cover letter. We'll just kick it over to them. And that way it puts them on notice that we're really concerned. Doesn't fight them about the park and tell them they're crazy and this and that. It's, if you're going to do this, we have a concern about this right here. And you should go through this analysis, if you will, and thought before you come up with a final design. Just to put it on record, just keep us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just to piggyback what you're saying, my concern, in addition to all the safety issues, is the question is, and it's an unknown factor today, but especially when we're going to be looking at the budgets, the unknown impact, negative impact that it will call having Milani open will cause to our public safety, our drain on the fire department, on emergency services, on the police. How, I mean, that's something that I'm not asking you now to project upon, but in our discussion going forward over the 5-year, that is a concern of mine. The other thing I just thought it was so wonderful with all the proclamations to acknowledge, not to acknowledge it, but we have such an abundance of outstanding people across the state of Florida, certainly, and particularly in this town, that I'm very gratified for that. So today was just a wonderful display, and the room was filled, and it's just a pleasure to give a piece of paper reward, but just to acknowledge them. So that's a joy that I'm sure we all share. That's it for me today.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on the crosswalk. I think in the last couple of months, I think there's been 4 accidents from Boca Highlands south, and 3 of the accidents had somebody died at each accident. And then the Boca Islands, I think they were crippled or something like that. So it's the whole A1A is a bad time crossing there. So maybe we can add that in. And I think the BCA said they would send a letter with you if you want to accompany or send a letter into them too, also on that. Yeah, proclamations. I mean, it's great to see that we have the best drinking water, I think, in the area there. I tell people I don't need bottled water. We have our own tap water. Of course, police, EMS, being a police officer, I think we got the best police force here, EMS, fire department, and our public works. They do great. And our building department, we have a great building department, and all Jeff's employees are great, and they're all helpful up there. And clerk, I mean, our town clerk, I mean, people don't realize she does administrative, keeper of records, oversees elections, manages our town meetings, and thank you. I just want to thank you, Lynelda and Jacqueline, for all your hard work. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Okay, I echo those thoughts. Also, I'd like to mention that I'd asked Marshall to put on a future agenda to look into the post FDOT and what the regulations are on FDOT property and our own property relative to along A1A. What will be allowed and not allowed? Hedges, no hedges, posts, no posts. I know we have some regulations, but I think we need consistency and we have to review it. And I know there are a lot of condos that are concerned if they don't have something, there'll be tire marks all along, things parking on the side. So I think it's a topic we have to look at. And I just want to communicate that I requested to Marshall to look into that as we go forward.
Thank you.
Good idea. Nothing from me. Town attorney?
Just one thing. So back in 2020, the town registered its logo as a service mark with the state. It's just time to renew it. So I just, before we did it, before staff did it, I just want to get council and make sure that that's what council wants to continue every 5 years. It's like $100. You have
I
to.
do.
So
I
if
like
I
it.
could just, I just want to make sure there's consensus among the council.
In favor? Is everybody in favor? Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you so
consensus.
much.
Thank you.
Okay,
need more?
Lynelda wants a motion. We have a motion. Oh. Oh, okay. Oh, it's in motion. I thought you said you wanted a motion. Well, now it's official. Thank you.
Did you say no motion?
Town manager?
I'm ready.
Yeah, we're excited for, Dr. Greenwald, thanks for coming. My favorite time of year is budget season. I get excited as David does. We sit back in the nerdery and we crunch all these numbers, and we're really excited for this. And usually this is when all of our residents start to travel, so they don't, get a chance to watch it. So you can tell your neighbors how much fun we are having these discussions, and we'd be glad to have them here. Crosswalks, just a little bit, not shown in the capital, but that is a capital project. It's a little bit pricier than prices continue to go. So it's about a little less, but I'm going to round up to $300,000 to put in all the lighting systems upon completion in road lighting. So we still have that there. Sergio's, working on the vendor to make sure that is the FDOT price that they've secured through vending contracts, so we can piggyback off that. But we are making, and we made that commitment in the paper too, that we've all said that we're going to put them in. So that's in the works. So we're processing that now. Again, budget season, very exciting. June 6th, I am nervous. We are hosting the managers. So hopefully that'll give us good energy to get better numbers, and we'll go from there.
Announcements. We have a few vacancies on the one for the Code Enforcement Board, one for the Natural Resources Preservation Advisory Board, and one for the Planning Board. Upcoming meetings, May 7th at 11 in the morning, the Natural Resources Preservation Advisory Board. May 8th at 9:30 in the morning, a meeting of the Planning Board. May 13th at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the special magistrate hearing. Town Hall will be closed on May 26th in observance of Memorial Day. May 28th at 10 o'clock in the morning, we have a Board of Adjustment and Appeals regular meeting. And we have our next town commission meeting on June 3rd at 1:30 in the afternoon. There are no board action reports. And with that, we can adjourn. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
you.